people who hardly get sick. What's your secret? Story 1. Combination of good genetics, eating nutritious foods, exercising regularly, good mental health, and not being in close contact with a lot of people, going to a lot of events with crowds. I get a cold maybe once every 12, 18 months, and that's about it. Story 2. Get your cortisol so high that you're in functional fight, freeze, or miss survival mode, and stay there. The cortisol will keep any illness you collect in a waiting area of sorts. The secret is to not let your cortisol drop, because then the waiting area door is opened, but your immune system is still asleep because it thought the natural steroids had it covered. I press just to cover myself, but it does work. You may get a heart attack, but not the flu. Story 3. Basic hygiene and no more. I don't use antibacterial soaps. I don't worry excessively about hand washing. Basically, I let my body be exposed to normal, everyday bacteria and viruses so that when I accidentally get exposed to the rough stuff, like if I can't avoid working with someone sick at work, my immune system is strong enough to fight it off. I get sick maybe once every 4 or 5 years. Story 4. A lot of good tips here, but here is one more. Learn to recognize your precursor signs of being sick and react with rest, hydration, maybe a warm bath, and sick days ASAP. Getting your A game on those white blood cells works wonders. Story 5, I'm a teacher, and when we started having to mask because of COVID, I didn't even get the sniffles, not once. For over 3 years, then I got COVID, but for almost 3 solid years, I did not get sick at all. Mask up. Edit. I should say that prior to COVID, I would regularly get sick twice in the fall, once over winter break, and severely in the spring where I would lose my voice. Story 6. Avoiding people who are sick. I wear a mask if there's something like a cold or flu going around at work when I'm close proximity. I don't go out in big groups, don't have children, and am avoidant of strangers when I'm out and about. I eat decently and take vitamin C/D supplements during the winter. Noting, I like to walk a lot as well. I get sun when I can. Story 7. I take loads of sick days from work to maintain my level of chill. I swear it's great. Fancy a day off? Don't go to work then. There's always another couple of hours in bed or maybe a video game and a joint. I try to avoid at least 10% of all Mondays. Sometimes, though, it just has to be that midweek break. Story 8. Just because I'm reading so many comments that list people's methods for avoiding illness, I have to say for the record that I almost never get sick, and I do none of that. I don't exercise, I eat processed food and too much of it, I sleep poorly, and keep irregular hours. I take no medication or supplements, I'm stressed as, and I haven't been to a doctor in 40 years. People in my household get sick, and it mostly bypasses me. The only thing I've actively protected myself from is COVID. I've stayed away from crowds, worn masks when I have to be in public, and gotten all the shots, and even sleeping in the same bed with someone who had COVID 3 times. I never got it. My unhealthy lifestyle will catch up with me, but I can only attribute the story so far to luck. Story 9, I had a roommate in college who never, ever got sick. I don't think I so much as heard her cough in the 4 years that we roomed together. She was also extremely socially awkward and suffered from very severe social anxiety. I actually think she was also selectively mute. She did open up to me verbally about 6 months in, though, so I'm proud to say she probably trusted me. I once asked her how it was that she never became ill. Apparently, she had spent her first 10 years of life bedridden with illness. She could hardly leave her own room, she was so ill. She didn't say why or with what, but apparently from that, her body just built up an invincible immunity. Antibodies of steel, that girl. Unfortunately, she was very lonely for those 10 years, so that's why she was so afraid of socializing. She was an amazing person, that girl. Story 10. Avoid crowds and gatherings. Wash your hands a lot, especially after shopping. Think germy door handles, pin pads, ATM machines, shopping cart handles. Avoid close contact with kids. They probably don't wash well or often enough, aren't careful around each other, and are basically germ factories. Story 11. During the pandemic, in addition to our regular morning showers, my family began showering as soon as we were home for the day. It has made an incredible difference regarding communicable diseases. My kiddo has done kindergarten, first grade, and second grade with maybe 1 or 2 colds per year. I don't remember the last time I had a cold. Story 12. Vigilance. As soon as I notice my immune system perk up, I take immune supports, drink tea, stay hydrated. With practice, you can throttle up your immunity so that it stays on top of whatever comes its way. I see a lot of folks recommending staying away from kids and crowds. I say do the opposite. Live your life. Your immune system is like a muscle. Use it or lose it. Story 13. I kinda overwash. I Lysol a lot, like every handle, multiple times a week. I brush my teeth a decent amount and use antibacterial mouthwash, which also just keeps away icky breathed-in germs. And I keep my germs to myself as much as I can, meaning no making out. I go outside as well and get fresh air often. And sometimes I'll go into heavily populated areas And there I assume most of the germs return back to me, so I still have a fair amount and can still build my immunity. Lastly, in the shower, I scrub until I feel like I've scrubbed off the top layer of skin. I am a germaphobe. Story 14. I don't actually have a good answer to this, but I very rarely get sick. Maybe once every 18 months I'll get a moderate cold. I travel for work. I take 50+ flights a year. My work involves being close to many people. I don't take any precautions besides regular hand washing. I am very social and always out and about. I have definitely been around people, events slept with, that were sick, but somehow I avoid it. I don't eat particularly healthy and I like beer. I'm an anomaly and I can't explain it, but I'm not going to complain about it. Story 15. I don't have kids. My brother and his family seems like they get sick every other week during the school year. I'm sure staying hydrated, washing my hands, not touching my face, diet dialed in, consistently exercise, ending my shower with cold water, per Limitless docuseries on Disney+. My job has limited customer interactions, and not hanging out in big groups all help too. Edit. Nothing against kids, but my niece is a petri dish, it seems. Story 16. I used to get sick all the time up till I was 21, honestly. Like it would be comical to my friends and family how often it was. I'm thinking a big part of that was just getting into working out. I'm not naturally athletic, but I try to work out 4 times a week and incorporate strength training. I feel that helped my immune system a lot. I haven't gotten sick this year, so far. At all, knocks on wood. I did get 2 migraines this year, though. I now take vitamins daily, so I think that helps too. I wash my hands and I also wear masks when I'm on public transport situation or on an airplane. I also try to manage my stress. Last 2 years, I got into trauma work for myself and also as a therapist, and I'm less triggered by things, so my nervous system is more regulated. Story 17. Basic hygiene and a variety of different foods. Home-cooked, not takeaway fast food. Don't use antibacterial soap as they strip away the beneficial bacteria on your skin, which leaves you more likely to get infections. More spots for infective bacteria to move on to once the beneficial bacteria have been removed. Genetics helps. Keeping my distance from people. Includes not taking public transport unless absolutely necessary. Having enough room in the house to avoid anyone sick. Story 18. I'd say genetics, but if I'm speculating, I'd say my childhood of being outside, getting into everything, and hanging out with everyone, strengthening my immune system. Also, I hardly take any medicine. Not that I have anything against it and have all my vaccines. But I won't take cold medicine or anything to pain unless I'm literally down for the count, so I think sometimes what knocks other people on their ass doesn't for me. Story 19. I wash my hands before touching food, period. There is no time where I eat without washing or using a utensil. I wash shopping carts religiously. I don't touch door handles in public places. Basically, if the public can touch it, I don't, or I wash before doing anything else. Wash my phone when I get home, if I use it out as well. I do get sick when one of my kids or husband brings it home. Last year, I became anemic during pregnancy and was sick every month for almost a year, though. I think the anemia during pregnancy really hurt my immune system this time around. Story 20. Genetics. My mom and dad are in their 90s and never got sick. Didn't eat the right things, not a second of exercise, watch too much TV, drink moderately, never water, Diet Coke, and get angry over the news. I exercise some and eat a little better, but go years without getting sick. No secret. Story 21. Definitely hygiene. On top of taking vitamins every night, especially C, garlic, zinc, I make sure to never ever touch my face in public. Touching a doorknob followed by your face is my personal hell. Germs get into your eyes, nose, mouth, etc. I use my sleeve as much as possible to open doors and wash my hands before eating. Stop touching your face, people. I've seen so many people touch something in public followed by itching their eye. Story 22. I wash my hands regularly throughout the day. I get vaccinated, and when I travel by plane once or twice a year, I mask at the airport and on the plane. I am a teacher who has 6 different classes daily with around 30+ kids in each class. I keep an air purifier running in my room. I am also very conscious about using hand sanitizer spray when I am touching things like student iPads. If there is a sick student in the room, which there frequently is, I try to maintain a proper distance. After the kids have left for the day, I may give the room a Lysol spritz if kids have been there sick. I'm not really as consistent with that, though. I haven't really been sick in years and still haven't gotten COVID. Story 23. Having an effed up, overreactive immune system. Autoimmune diseases are weird, and I rarely ever got sick while my disease was flaring for a few years. Now I'm on a biologic, which is an immunosuppressant, and I don't get sick more than the average person, and I feel much better day to day. But it's annoying getting colds again. Story 24. Work at a school. You'll be sick for a couple of years, and then your immune system will be pretty robust afterwards. I was sick at most once per year, including during COVID. Drop the junk food, eat well, And build up your immune system with vitamins and supplements, especially vitamin D3 with K2. Take probiotics, exercise, wash your hands. Story 25. I'll let my body heal itself. I don't take antibiotics or go for any treatment, but I'll make sure I'll eat good food throughout the day to support my immune system. I have been following this since my childhood, which prevents me from getting sick often. Story 26. I barely wash my hands. I will eat stuff that I dropped on the ground. I jumped around in mud as a child. My hands will be black, covered in oil, grease, and who knows what, and I will eat a sandwich. I've never gotten an infection and rarely get sick. 32 years old, you just gotta be dirty and let your body build up immunity. Story 27. I work at Disney World. I guess I've built up immunity. Even during the height of the pandemic I worked when the park first reopened, never once got COVID. That I know of was fully vaxxed as soon as I could. Could have caught it, but the symptoms were so mild I never noticed. Story 28. A lot of time as a kid spent around a ton of other kids, Boy Scouts, clubs, family out of state, whatever. Just a lot of immune system exposure. Add that in always biting my nails through school and going away to college, my immune system has just learned a thing or two. Might be jinxing myself, but I probably haven't gotten can't move sick in 20 years. Story 29. I'm not around people much except outside. I lift, run, hike, and bike, and working with horses is great exercise. I eat some meat, mostly chicken, but lots of fruit and veggies. My go-to drink is water. I drink rarely and don't smoke. I also inherited great genes. Story 30. I say this sitting here currently sick with a pretty bad cold, but I actually get sick maybe once every 2 or 3 years. I get my flu shot every year, and now I combine it with the COVID shot. I eat really well, have a physical outdoor job that keeps me fit, and don't come in contact with lots of random people that often. Story 31. I've gotten sick a lot less often since COVID because I started always masking indoors when out of the house. The times I've caught something always seemed to be at home when family members like my nephews would visit. I don't even use an airtight mask, just one of those ones with the folds you pull under your chin. They seem to make a big difference. Story 32. Honestly, I don't know. I just don't overthink getting sick. If someone around me is sick, I'll be sure to keep my distance or wash my hands, but otherwise I won't purposely avoid germs. I grew up around kids and also work with kids now, but still don't really get sick. I've never had COVID and my job made me test regularly for years, so I know I wasn't asymptomatic. And in the last 10 years, I've only had the flu twice. I don't usually get the flu shot unless required. It's probably a mix of good genetics and feeling indifferent about germs. I'm also immune to the chickenpox, so never had that either, even though I was exposed plenty. Story 33. I wash my hands regularly and completely do not touch my face. Something in my nose, itch on my eye, something caught in my teeth. None if it is being touched before I wash my hands. I also try to eat healthy and be active. I've noticed a huge difference in just following this rule. Story 34. Have ADHD. I probably still get sick, but I simply forget that I'm sick, don't have enough awareness of my normal state to notice if something is abnormal or not. For example, my period is literally always a surprise because I can't keep track of how much time has passed. Story 35, I get sick every 2 years like clockwork. So, not sure if that's not very often or not compared to the average person, but one thing I do is drink lots of water daily. It's easy because I naturally do not enjoy soda or juices. I'm not going to say I'm the most healthiest or in the best shape, but I don't eat out a lot and generally eat pretty clean. I'm 40 and I'd consider myself overweight I'm 5'2" at 160 pounds average, so I'm not like some super fit healthy person, but I do try. Story 36. My dad is like this. He's in his 70s, is diabetic, his kidneys are failing, he's sedentary, and he eats junk food. When I got COVID pre-vaccine and mask mandate, I was down for an entire week. My chest still hurts sometimes. He got it from me as we lived in the same house. He slept in for a few hours for 2 days and completely recovered. He says he just refuses to get sick. He tells his body no, and it works. He's always been like this. I clearly didn't get those genetics. Story 37. When my kids were born, we lived in a super tiny town, 400 people, just outside my hometown. When they were toddlers, they played outside nearly every day until they were 3, RD4 the grade, and they have only been sick a couple of times. And that was minor stomach flu or a cold. They are now 17 and 19. Story 38. Lots of beer. At worst, I get a sinus infection every 3rd or 4th year. I got COVID and only realized it because I woke up a little sore and had a fever, but only lasted a few hours. I had 5 days off work and felt perfectly fine. Oh, and apparently I have some great genetics from what I have found out recently. Story 39. 3 things seem to work for me. The first is to ignore or get out of conversations about whatever bug is going around. It is probably coincidence, but whenever I get into those conversations, I get that bug. The second is to stay busy. When I start to feel slightly ill, I will keep myself busy. If I stop, whatever it is takes over and I get sick. And the third is working from home. The lack of commuting on trains, buses, and being stuck in offices works wonders. Story 40. A few say stay away from kids. I've been sick twice on the last 25 years, and I teach high school. I had double pneumonia a few years ago and a mild case of COVID in 2022. I teach high school. I'm never sick. Outside of 2018 and 2022, I've never had a sick day. I do take days off on occasion anyway. I don't get the flu, don't get common colds, sinus infections. Just always been this way. Story 41. I don't know the secret. I'm just glad I'm lucky enough to be one of them. I work out regularly, don't smoke, seldom drink, brush and floss my teeth daily, and try, not very successfully, to limit my carb, fat, and calorie intake. I'm 61 with a resting heart rate of, looks at watch, 53 BPM. I'm fully vaccinated for everything it's recommended a guy my age be vaccinated for as well, including the ones I got when I was a kid. Story 42. Being a germaphobe helps. Frequent hand washing and sanitizing, not touching things in public. I've waited 5 minutes in a men's room for someone to come in so I didn't have to touch the door handle. Daily vitamins and eating right. Never touching your face, especially when you're out. I rarely get sick. I've gone years. Story 43. It sounds crazy, but I just tell myself all the time I'm not going to get sick. I don't complain about aches or pains. I don't act like I have something wrong with me. And I generally have a positive outlook on things, and I laugh a lot. It sounds weird, but I'm a big believer in kind over matter. Not with everything, otherwise I'd be rich. But never being sick is pretty damn cool. Maybe I'm just lucky. Whatever it is, I'm glad. I honestly cannot remember the last time I was sick. Story 44. So, it's been 15 years since I quit eating meat. I only eat dairy and vegetables. I can count on one hand the time I've been sick in these last 15 years. And the only serious one was those damn kidney stones. The doctors said I was eating too much protein, so I should eat less soy-based products and stuff like that. And of course, drink more waters and reduce the salt. Still working on that. Story 45. I'm a college kid with asthma, a weakened immune system from long COVID and endometriosis. Let's just say the me and flu season don't mix. I'm always sick, even during the summer, though it does happen less often in the summer. You people who don't get sick are lucky as hell. Edit. For the record, I don't work with kids and I'm not around them very often. I bathe daily, brush my teeth twice every day, thoroughly wash my hands, etc. Story 46. Everyone in my family has either an autoimmune disorder, lived on mud pies as a kid. I'm waiting my turn for my handout of RA, Mississippi, lupus, or a combo platter. That being said, not having exposure to kids, not going anywhere, and having been exposed to pretty much everything as a kid probably helped. The only time I get sick now is when I come back from seeing my SO. Story 47. We got sick like maniacs after having a kid during the COVID times. Thankfully, all tests came back negative. The fault was in our apartment, apparently. It lacked good sunlight, got moldy, no matter how much we tried to keep it clean. New apartment gets plenty of direct sunlight. Been 3 months. So far, so good. If we feel sick due to office air conditioning, a good afternoon sleep by the window during the weekend saves us. We are really saving on the medical expenses now. Story 48. Cigarettes and whiskey. Seriously, IDFK what my mother did right when she was pregnant. But I pretty much drive this meat suit my brain is stuck in, like I stole it and never even get like a cold. The last time my unvaxxed ass, this wasn't a political thing for me, I'm just in lazy, got COVID, I had a sore throat for 4 hours and then literally nothing. It doesn't make any sense. My diet is pretty much Taco Bell, Jameson, PBR, and Camel Lights. In before someone brings up age, I'm way closer to 40 than I am 21. Story 49. I don't have kids and don't want to have them. I've been trying to eat better. I exercise 3 days a week, plus try to get other forms of cardio and casual walks, hikes. The times where I have gotten sick, it's usually because I've done too much and my body needed a break. I'm very social and I like keeping busy, but sometimes I can burn myself out. Weirdly, since high school, every few years I do get this cold for a little, and then a lingering cough, but that's the most that happens to me. Story 50. Funny enough, I have a minor cold right now, the first one I've had in 20 months or so. I wash my hands a fair bit, avoid crowds often, but otherwise nothing special. But my mother was the miracle. She ran a daycare for little kids for 30 years and got sick maybe 5 times, never seriously. She felt the constant exposure aided her immune system. Story 51. I'm not afraid of germs. I don't over-sanitize. I do wash my hands and clean the house. I don't get overprotective of them being around others with colds. I work out and try to sleep. If I think I'm getting something, or I will also start taking vitamin C, a lot of chewable ones, and that seems to do the trick too. Story 52. I never get normal people sick, and I don't get headaches ever. I only get severe or odd illnesses every 5 and 10 years. Like the last time I had a cold was when I was a kid, but I got shingles at 29 years old, LOL. And I've had pneumonia twice, which is awful. I got mono in my late 20s too, but the flu? Pfft, not since I was like 10. I was also basically symptomless when I got COVID. Story 53. It's kind of good getting sick. Not often, but sometimes helps keep those antibodies up. This isn't medical advice, but it's good to give the old immune system a run for its money every now and then to keep it working well. I just hope I'm not tempting fate in saying this. Story 54, genetics. I have not had a cold in 5-6 years. I did get COVID in 2021. I work around a lot of visitors from all over the US and the world, so I'm exposed to a lot of germs. My mom lived to be 104. I am 77. Her advice was never, ever give up. Even if you don't feel like it, get up. Get outside and walk, even if it is just around the house. Story 55. Colds and flus are a novelty for me. I've had COVID twice, 4 shots, but it was nothing more than mild congestion, sore throat for a day or two. I'm a bit of a germaphobe. Sanitize my phone every day, avoid public bathrooms, always close taps with paper towel, and wash my hands often. Never take medication when I'm sick. Only supplement I take is vitamin D, Canadian. Diet is fairly good, but I'm not great with hydration, even though I know I should. Now the realistic part, drink alcohol 1-2 days a week and don't usually get more than 6 hours of sleep. I guess the good counteracts the bad habits, or I'm just lucky, LOL. Story 56. There are a little over 200 strains of the common cold. Most people have to get sick with a new strain before their body develops an immunity to that strain. Somewhere between 20 to 25% of the population is inexplicably immune to most, if not all, strains. There's obviously some genetic component here, but it's unlikely Big Pharma is doing much research on it. Still, I was pretty pissed off when my mom, who also never gets sick, submitted her DNA to 23andMe. She thought I was being paranoid when I told her they're just data mining the human genome, the same way Facebook mined personal data. A few years later, it turns out that's exactly what they were doing. Story 57. I'm sitting at an airport, which is already a red flag and puts me at high risk. On top of that, about 3 rows behind me at my gate, and there's a baby that can't be more than 6 months old coughing up her lungs. The entire plane is royally ed. But yeah, regarding my normal everyday environments, I'm 38 years old and pretty much my entire life I used to get sick. A cold, maybe once a year, if that. But then I had a kid in 2021, and I've probably gotten the flu or serious viral infection at least twice a year now. Yes, having kids or being near kid ALA puts you at high risk, no matter how much you practice good hygiene. Sure, you can take vitamins and stuff like that. It will lessen the symptoms and duration, but it's very difficult to avoid getting sick altogether. Story 58. Kids are coming up a lot on here, and for good reasons. They are little vessels for every bug out there. I have a 1-year-old, and I still don't get sick very often. I'd like to think this is from just eating well, sleeping, exercising, etc. But now I'm wondering if this is the calm before the storm when he hits school age. Story 59. Honestly, after reading everyone's tactics, I have no idea why I don't get sick. I really don't wash my hands. I absolutely don't drink enough water. I'm generally always stressed or anxious. Maybe I get enough sleep, but IDK? Right now I work from home, so I'm never really around people other than family, but WFH has only been the last 2.75 years. Before that, I was in constant contact with all kinds of sick and gross people. Worked at a DMV, and before that a warehouse, before that food service. Last time I was sick was last November, and I was straight up in the upside down from Stranger Things. Even a little scared at times, LOL. But other than that, I couldn't tell you last time I got sick. I've never even gotten a flu shot, not anti-vax. I just never got it as a kid, and then never really thought about it when I was an adult since I don't get sick. I have gotten COVID vaccinations. Edit, spelling. Story 60. We wash our hands religiously, but especially any time we come in from being out in the world. It doesn't matter if we went out for a 10-minute errand or for hours for work. Every single time we walk in the door, the first thing that we all do is wash our hands. We started being super retentive about this when our child was young, as she has very serious chronic conditions, one of them being that she is missing a component of her immune system. I am probably tempting fate, but I can't remember the last time that one of us was sick. Story 61, I have a few tips. Wash your hands. Wet lather for 20 seconds minimum. Clean every finger, back of hands, and under nails. Then rinse and shut off the sink with elbows, fists, or paper towel. Before meals, after using the restroom, after physical contact with animals, and when you come home after being out. Things like doorknobs, phones, keyboards, cards, railings, and water bottles should be considered dirty unless freshly cleaned. Going, literally, hand in hand with this. Don't touch your face unless your hands are freshly washed. Stay hydrated and keep your meals as healthy as possible. Exercise and fresh air also help. Keep your house room at a comfortable temperature and humidity level. When outside, keep yourself at a comfortable temperature by dressing appropriately for the weather. If a vaccine is available and you're able to do so, take it. Be aware of when you're in an area where infections can easily spread, a crowded train car, clinic, school, etc., and take extra precautions. Medical mask, stay away from people who are obviously sick, use hand sanitizer. When you do get sick, let yourself rest and recover. Pushing yourself to keep up your regular output of work while ill will just make the illness last longer. This isn't much of a tip, but it's something people around me have assumed helped build my immune system as a kid. I hated pills and any type of medicine as a child. So when I got sick, I'd just ride out the symptoms and let my body work it out however it had to. I still do this, but these days viral illnesses last about 1.5 days, and more serious illnesses last around 2-5 days maximum. I don't recommend suffering through something painful if you have the means to help yourself, and I have zero scientific evidence that this actually helped me. But people like pointing it out. I know that riding out pain, headaches, infections, etc., without painkillers has really boosted my pain tolerance, so maybe it's the same. Story 62. I've been under insane stress. I have 2 little kids. I sleep terrible. I have not been eating well at all. I haven't been exercising, but I take zinc, and it's shown to help with colds at least. I used to be sick like one, 2 times a month, but since I got a divorce and started taking zinc regularly, I get sick way less. Story 63. I stay away from kids, and only one of my current friends has kids. Thanksgiving and Christmas are usually the only days I normally associate with children. 3 years I get sick. Didn't catch COVID until January of this year, and it was right after school started, and my niece got sent home from school with a stomach ache, and my sister was working, so I took her home. She gave me COVID. Before then, the last time I was sick was November of 2019. I only know that COVID happened after, and when people would ask about it, I'd tell them I haven't been sick at all yet. Also, I work in my own office at work and have an air purifier that runs in it. The only people who go in there are the cleaning crew, unless I'm training someone. Not sure if that matters, but could. Story 64 genetics? Exposing myself to germs all my life? IDK. I don't eat particularly great or get a ton of exercise. I just have a strong immune system from not being overly germophobic, I think. Not everything has to be sterilized, and you don't have to wash your hands a dozen times a day, only when something gets on them. I get a cold twice a year in spring and fall when the weather changes and allergy starts getting heavy. That's it. No flu, no stomach bugs, nothing. My son hardly ever gets sick either. Story 65. I've volunteered with kids for many years, and I think it's really boosted my immune system. I hardly ever get sick, and when I do, it doesn't last long. I also take garlic and reishi supplement capsules, and I'm not sure if it helps prevent, but it definitely helps me when I'm sick, as well as taking elderberry and zinc capsules or in some other form. Also, whenever I feel a sore throat coming or a tickle I think is or might lead to getting sick, I do gargles with Bacardi and maybe even take a tiny gulp. My family claims the alcohol helps kill the bacteria LOL, and maybe it's a placebo IDRC lol. It feels like it works. And story 66. I want to give you some background, as I have kids. Kids are the worst for germs. I am relatively sedentary, a shame too, I used to be in shape. It's one of goals on the short list to get in better shape, but for the purposes of this conversation, I'm 6'0", 250 pounds, drink a good amount of beers, barely exercise, and have a WFH job. I also smoke weed, but not daily. I don't take any vitamins, and my water intake isn't what it should be. In fact, I take an PPI and SSRI, one of the thiazides for high BP, and a statin every morning. I also have asthma that is very highly controlled with little to no medication. I enjoy picking my nose from time to time, especially around this time of year, when the heat dries out the overnight air. I cut my fingernails weekly. I have 2 kids, 13 and 10. I was sick 6 weeks ago for 4 days, but not since 2 years prior. I have never had COVID, never had a positive test. My secrets? Sleep. I need 8 HRS to be at 100% function, 9 to 5 inches. My job doesn't give me the luxury of slacking off, so I need my sleep. Give your body enough restful sleep. Alcohol-free, weed-free, stress-free. I can always judge my stress level and sleep effectiveness by my nighttime jaw-clenching pain in the AM. That's my barometer. Hand washing. Practicing good hand washing technique goes so far at preventing the spread of germs. I probably wash my hands 10x a day in addition to the times I use the toilet. If I help the kids with homework and touch their PC or use their pencils, I wash my hands after. If I've been out to the stores, I come in and wash my hands. Shoes off in the house. I grew up in a household in the 1970s/1980s where we wore shoes inside. Since I met my wife 20 years ago, no shoes in the house. I don't know how I lived any other way, seems so obvious. In my life, these are the real big three. WFH, I believe, is truly the best preventative. I have limited contact with people in the 9-5 times weekly that I think that's where the majority of my secret is. Story 67. I have multiple chronic illnesses that leave me immunocompromised, yet I rarely get sick. Here are some things that I attribute to that. I avoid activities that put me in close contact with strangers. I don't mean that I avoid crowds completely. I still go to the grocery store or malls, and I enjoy being around people, but I avoid being close to them. I normally like to keep a distance of about 6 feet from most people, even before it became the norm during COVID. For example, if I go to the doctor and there's a waiting room full of people, I choose a seat that's as isolated as possible. If I go somewhere with an elevator and it's jam-packed, I turn around and take the stairs. I also avoid events that will force me to be shoulder to shoulder with strangers. And if I have to or really want to attend them, I wear a mask. I eat a relatively healthy diet with lots of whole foods and homemade meals. These foods are full of vitamins and nutrients that help boost the immune system. When you prepare your own meals as often as you can, it also greatly decreases the risk of exposure to illness. I'm not a very touchy person. When it's appropriate, I avoid shaking hands with people and opt for a polite wave. I also don't hug people who aren't members of my household. These aren't really in an effort to avoid germs. I'm just not a touchy person. But I do believe it has probably helped me avoid some illness. I especially don't hug and kiss on other people's children like my nephews. I show them love in lots of other ways, but I feel no need to get that close. I don't have children and no longer work with children. When I was teaching, I was in horrible health until the mask mandates came about. Once I started wearing masks, I stopped catching colds and stomach bugs from my students. As soon as mask mandates were lifted, my school demanded that teachers stop wearing masks. I did, and the illnesses all returned. I left teaching in summer of 2022 and didn't have a cold until this summer. I think both wearing masks and leaving the classroom saved my health, and I'm really considering going back to wearing masks. ETA. I also keep a very clean home. I wouldn't go as far as to say pristine, but I like my home to be hygienic, especially my kitchen. I also follow safe cooking practices and haven't had food poisoning in years unless I've eaten out or eaten someone else's food. Story 68. I'm around kids, my nieces and nephews. I'm a fireman. I work around a lot of people. We go on medical runs. My wife is a pediatric nurse, so she's around kids, and I rarely get sick, almost never. Getting 8 hours of sleep helps your immune system greatly. When I'm not working, I need 8 hours. Vitamins, working out, taking walks, vitamin D supplementation, 2x servings of veggies daily, lots of water. I try to keep stress levels down. Story 69. Most people actually do get sick 9 times a year. Most of the time, the symptoms are just so mild they don't really notice. I used to get sick a lot more, but after getting a mortgage and my wife quitting her job to finish her degree, I think the stress really helped me quit being sick so often, or at least not notice anymore. Been probably 18 months since I actually had to call out sick. Story 70. Diet. Water, no soda, no junk food, no fast food, no frozen or ultra-processed foods. Exercise, time spent outdoors, meditation, proper alone time for recharging, minimal screen time, no pharmaceuticals, no pills or med subscriptions. I use natural-based hygiene products without dyes, perfumes, aluminum, petroleum-based products, etc. Skin is the largest organ. I do not surround myself with negative or toxic people, nor do I have toxic or negative thought habits. This includes negative music, TV, and movies. If I drink, it is once in a blue moon, few times a year, usually held in check to a beer or wine, singular. I stay involved in a creative process for less stress, making art, writing, learning, exploring, making music, listening to music, appreciating art, learning philosophy, puzzles, learning new languages, always learning new concepts, ideas, and principles, traveling, or learning about places to travel to when I am able to. All of this is exercise for the brain and soul. And the biggest reason, no kids, plus 1 proper sleep and rest. In short, there is no magic bullet, no shortcut to the process, only being dedicated to avoiding things that can make you sick and doing more that helps to heal you. The choices are yours to make. Source, over 40, run circles around my nephews and nieces who are athletic and in sports, ages 8, 16. My niece thought I was in my low 30s and thought her dad was in his low 50s. He is only 5 years older than me. Boy, was he pissed, but he has a totally different lifestyle than me, even though we share the same genetics. Story 71. Depending on what you mean by hardly, I rarely get super sick. A mild but tolerable cold a few times a year and a bad one about once a year. My secret is the opposite of what everyone else said, though. I've worked with children for over 20 years, which means I get all the latest and greatest immunities from every bug that passed through my school. Story 72. Washing my hands before eating, with soap and water. Hand sanitizer isn't enough, also masking. I have autoimmune disease and I have to mask, or I pick up anything airborne easily. That's about it. I take a lot of supplements for deficiency, but let's face it, those aren't miracle workers. It's avoidance of exposure via hygiene and masking. Story 73. I get very mildly sick at least once a year. I do not take really any precautions to avoid exposure, as my job involves quite a lot of social contact. I cannot possibly say what I do differently to most people aside from the fact that I have very good genetics when it comes to physical health. My grandparents are still alive and kicking and in decent shape at the respective age of 95. Story 74. I used to get sick quite often and also had terrible allergies my entire life, at least twice a year. 2.5 years ago, I cut all added sugar and most natural sugar from my diet and started focusing on getting all the essential vitamins and nutrients into my diet on a regular basis from sources with high bioavailability, so not gummy vitamins or most OTC multivitamins, and haven't had a cold or flu since then, and my allergies are nearly non-existent. The most I get is a little tired, maybe a slight sore throat or slightly itchy eyes/ears during extremely high pollen counts. I have kids in public school that come home every other week with some bug, coughing all over the house constantly, and I still never get sick. Other things that definitely help that I've been doing since the start of the pandemic. Learn to wash your hands properly, truly properly. Hot water, soap, scrubbing for 20 seconds and continuing to scrub as you rinse. Not touching the faucet handle or doors with your hands after washing. Wash your hands thoroughly before eating or touching your face. Break any habit of touching your face so you do it as little as possible. Form a habit to open doors, turn on switches/faucets/etc. with your elbows or wrists. Wash your hands as soon as you get home anytime you leave the house. Change your clothes if you were in public. Regularly, wipe down the high-touch surfaces in your home, doorknobs, light switches, banisters, etc., with disinfectant if you have other people, especially kids, in your house that don't wash their hands as much. Don't kiss your spouse, significant other, anyone really if they say they are feeling under the weather. Story 75. I have kids, and we are never sick. Even when we tested positive for COVID years ago, we were asymptomatic. We've both never had to see a doctor outside of routine physicals. My diet is terrible, but I do work out daily. I'm big into ensuring we get enough vitamin D, exercise, and sleep. I think it also helps that we both seem to have inherited some sort of anti-stress gene, where we believe everything is going to work out in our favor. So when it's lights out, we both fall asleep quickly and rest well. Story 76. My WBC are always right at the high limit of normal. It's a fucking fortress in here. I only get colds once or twice a year. Had the flu once in my entire life, but I do want to bring awareness to the fact that stomach bugs can permanently maim you. My gastro said I could have just been around a random gross person, and whatever they gave me attacked my nerves before my immune system killed it. So now I have permanent stomach paralysis. Quit going out when you're sick. You're hurting more than yourself by doing that. Story 77. From 1828. I was a nicotine smoker. In early 20s, I spent most nights in a room full of friends sharing various smoking devices. I was sick, it seemed like once a month. At 28, I quit nicotine and I don't do group smoke sessions anymore. It's been over 10 years now, and I got COVID once with no symptoms, and a respiratory infection once with no debilitating symptoms. I'm also an introvert that stays at home or alone in the woods during my free time. However, I have always worked around the general public. Story 78. I am unsure of the last time I was sick. Knock on metaphorical wood. Never had COVID. Also never had kids. Haha. For better or worse, most of my friends are hundreds of miles away, until I hopefully make some more. I think being introverted has helped me here. Even as a kid, untreated allergies were typically what led to me being sick. I recently became much more health conscious and hope to continue my streak. However, even when I was drinking a bottle of wine every day and eating garbage, I managed to avoid getting sick. I do consume a lot of vitamin C now and recently added elderberry and zinc to the mix. Heard good things, figured it couldn't hurt. I have to watch the vitamin C to make sure I'm not getting too much though.